It is now my honor to give the floor to the Director of the National Assembly in Panama, Mr. Saad. Antonio, you have the floor.
Buenas tardes a todos. Muchas gracias.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for this opportunity. Well, I'd like to begin by telling you that it is an honor for me to represent my country, Panama, at this e-Parliament conference here in Washington, D.C. I should say that Panama is a small country. However, it is a country of great opportunity. And something interesting to look at is to see how we can make use of our opportunities. And the National Assembly of Panama has some technical deficiencies that keep us from being 100% efficient. When I was invited to come to this, I was very excited because I look at this as a unique opportunity to share with other parliamentarians to talk about different technologies that are being used in different areas to improve and to optimize the resources of our parliaments. But when I was invited to actually participate at this panel, I was even more excited because I thought, well, now I can show some of our projects and also make use of your feedback. So my presentation above all is going to focus on what we have discovered in terms of our analysis on our computer security in Panama, and I'm also going to present on some of the future steps of our plans. As far as our assessment, we focused our research in three different areas. One was users or people. The second was look at processes, and the third was to look at technology. And the fact is, I need to confess that in terms of security, we have a lot of deficiencies in the National Assembly in Panama, but we're working very hard on that, and I will tell you a little bit about that. In terms of the findings of our research, we saw, first of all, that we were lacking formal regulations to apply for cybersecurity within our institution. We did not have an institutional strategy to address cybersecurity problems. And something very important, which I think was brought up earlier by our colleagues here, is that we did not have an active participation from the executive, the administrative unit in the parliament, and did not understand the importance of cybersecurity. So as far as process, like I said, we did not have a formal policy for the use of our cybersecurity resources. Our process up until now had been focused basically on responding to problems, to issues. We were always responding to malware attacks, or different types of hacking attacks, and we lacked a good vision of how to address these problems in the future. As far as technology, our technology is obsolete. We did not conduct periodic reviews of the state of our cybersecurity, and we lacked a contingency plan. So all of that I was showing in that slide has to do with our assessment that we carried out 2 months ago. We were working on this for 3 months, so the analysis was 2 months ago, and now I'm going to tell you a little bit about what our strategy is. Now that we have this information that we discovered through our research, now we look at some of the solutions that we have proposed. Well, basically, we have three pillars here to address. Basically, policies, that is to come up with some standardized guidelines for the entire institution. Policies that serve to instruct our staff, our personnel, and the institution so that they can learn to comply with our security policy. Also, we want to standardize our processes so that depending on who's in charge of our office, we don't want the procedures to change. We want them to be the same, to have compliance with all of the standards that are going to be established in this project. And we also looked to define procedures, which is to say basically how we are going to improve our systems. And the goals, first of all, is that we want to have a security awareness program with support from the National Assembly's Administrative Unit. We want to provide this security awareness training for everyone at the Parliament to let them know what their rights and responsibilities are in terms of cybersecurity. Another goal is to do an analysis of the gaps that we have, to identify those gaps, and then to create contingency plans in order to close those security gaps once we have identified them. Another very important thing that we want to do is we want to change the mindset of our people. We want it to be in the parliamentarians' DNA. We don't want them to feel forced to comply with these practices. We want them to understand why these policies should be complied with as a matter of second nature. We also need to do periodic evaluations of our policy. Once we have our policy implemented, we need to be able to review them regularly to make sure that everything is still valid and current. Because as we've mentioned on several occasions, technology changes quite quickly, and it's important to be on the cutting edge. And we also have a plan to disclose all of these policies, because as I was saying, we want all of our people, all of our personnel and staff, they're key in order for us to have success. Focusing now on the strategy, one pillar of our strategy is really to focus on involving the administrative staff of the Parliament, because we need their support. Their support is key for us to achieve all of this, not only to approve the policy, but also for them to approve our security projects, whatever we propose to improve infrastructure and security within the Assembly. So our first step then was to submit to them our findings out of our research, our analysis, and to let them know of the risks that we face if we do not address these problems. Let them know that the cybersecurity of an institution as important as a Parliament is
Hello.
robust security. It needs
Fine, how
to
are
be
you?
able to withstand any type of attack. Right now we are working on security information and bringing that in line with our strategy within the Assembly. We want to have everything done in keeping with our strategy. We want all projects, programs, and initiatives carried out to address the needs of the Parliament itself. At the same time, we are carrying out a review of the roles and functions, not only of the cybersecurity department, but also of other departments, because we truly believe that cybersecurity is not the sphere of only one department. It applies to everyone. It is a complex issue that should be addressed by everyone in every department. In our case, we have 5 different departments under the Office of Technology, and all of these departments in some way or another have to do with data protection, with the security of applications and software, etc., and communications. So we feel that we need to work as a team, and in fact, one of the projects that I'm going to comment on in a little bit is a project where we have all of the representatives of these 5 departments. They're all working actively in order to achieve a synergy on these projects so that we can be successful in our efforts. Another goal we have is that once we have all of these policies in place, we want to look at our procedures, and we want to create an official document that will be actually law, not only at the National Assembly, but that will apply to the entire government in Panama. So we are working with the Ministry of Innovation in Panama, which is actually a cabinet ministry, and we're working with them to come up with a standardized plan that will cover all of the branches of government, a law that forces compliance with security procedures. So my office is playing an active role in the committee that's drafting those policies, that law, which is very good because it will allow us to apply these measures globally throughout the government. Another important goal that we have is training. We are trying to get training for all of the staff in the different technology sections and departments so that they can play their part and so that they can be certified as well trained We don't want to just give them a list of things to do, but we want to have them know what the tools are for, how to use those tools. That is why we feel that training is critical, and we don't want to just certify them with some kind of training, but we want to keep them up to date so that they are up to date on all the different types of cybersecurity issues as they come up. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about a project, as I mentioned earlier, the National Assembly in Panama right now. The data center technology, it's not very up to date, it's obsolete in fact. And what we want to do, first of all, is optimize our resources by incorporating the latest technology. First, we want the assets, the information to be well protected, and we want a system that allows us to grow in an orderly fashion in the future. What we have today is something called a data center, and every time we have to acquire or purchase a new application, we have to go out and buy a new server. So we are actually incurring a lot of costs with this system. What we want to do is, what I'm showing here on the screen, is to have a new data center under a concept of virtualization, where we will make better use of resources. We want several layers, one with service applications, another layer for storage where we can manage all of the infrastructure of the data center, and then the virtual layer, which will allow us to work with a variety of applications. This is something that we feel is very important, something that we're lacking in the assembly right now. What we want for this project then is also to have a redundancy. In other words, we want to have a mirror site that will replicate all of the information applications that we have, such that if something happens, we can have that immediate backup handy. This diagram shows that the primary site is going to be an IDC, a local provider that will have the firewalls in place, and then we have a secondary site which will be within the parliament, which is where we have our data center today. That's the part that's going to have the mirror site. If something happens in one site, the other site can immediately pick up. All of this is backed up by a backup electrical system, so that there is no interruption to the power supply, with a contingency plan that allows for us to have definitions for applications, so that we know what it is that we have to address in case we have some kind of attack against the data center. And then once we have this robust infrastructure in place, what we want is to have a system where we can have continuous improvement, because of course you cannot have an ideal state once and for all when it comes to technology. You need to improve constantly. We want to be able then to manage our assets and resources, to be able to carry out measurements so that we can see what the latest trends are, to see if we truly are up to date. And all of this revolves around the three pillars that I mentioned earlier: people, processes, and technology. Another issue for me that's very interesting, something that we were discussing, in fact, before this presentation, something that goes hand in hand with the issue of the challenges we face, this issue on information security. The Panamanian Assembly is, well, there's something unique to it in that the Speaker of the Assembly changes every year. So imagine drafting up a roadmap of the technological strategy. If it's based on the support of the Speaker, that's going to be a pretty tough thing to do. So what we are looking to do right now is to create the basis, the pillars that will make it so that in the future it doesn't matter who the Speaker, who's in charge of the Assembly is, so that we can continue forward. This is, we have a lot of opportunities to make enhancement to the Parliament. However, this project is something that we consider a priority, because this will allow us to lay down the stepping stones that will allow us to be more efficient in the future.